I'm Rosemary. It's been 2 years since the storm that nearly destroyed my life, but the memories are still as vivid as if they happened yesterday. I'm sitting in the worn armchair by the window, just like I used to, watching my 7-year-old daughter, Ava, play in the yard. The house, the one my grandmother left me, is now a place of peace and security, free from the secrets and lies that once threatened to tear us apart. But it wasn't always like this. There was a time when this house, my safe haven, became the center of a web of deceit spun by my husband, Ethan. Ethan had always been ambitious. He worked in corporate sales, but he was constantly searching for the next big thing. A few weeks ago, he started spending most of his evenings in his study, hunched over his laptop, speaking in low, intense tones on the phone. He told me it was a new tech startup with his old college buddy, Leo. He was full of energy, talking about seed funding, scalability, and market disruption. I was happy for him. I wanted to see him thrive after feeling stuck in his job for so long. However, there was something off about his excitement. It had a frantic, almost desperate edge to it. And his secretiveness started to creep into our marriage, like a thin, sharp shard of glass. Whenever I walked into the room, he would angle his phone away or quickly minimize a spreadsheet on his screen, offering me a tight, forced smile. "Just boring numbers, honey," he'd say. "You don't need to worry your pretty little head about it." One night, as I sat in the armchair by the window, sipping a cup of chamomile tea and watching the rain paint shimmering streaks on the glass, I heard Ethan's voice. It was different from his usual confident pitch. It was hushed, conspiratorial. I leaned forward, straining to hear over the drumming rain. "No, Leo, she has no idea," Ethan whispered. My heart skipped a beat. She? Who was she? "It's better this way. Less emotional baggage to deal with," he continued. There was a pause, and I held my breath, the tea growing cold in my hands. "Look, the market's hot right now. The appraisal came in even higher than we expected. Once the sale goes through, we'll have more than enough capital to launch properly. We just need to get her on board to sign the final papers." "The sale? What sale?" My mind raced. We hadn't talked about selling anything. Our car was paid off, and the only real asset we had was this house. My house. A cold dread settled in my stomach. This house was in my name, a gift from my grandmother's will. It was my one piece of solid ground, the anchor for our family. Ethan had always called it our house, but we both knew the legal truth. He couldn't sell it without me, could he? I set my cup down and walked quietly to his study door. His back was to me. "I'll handle Rosemary," he was saying, his voice laced with a frustrating mix of affection and condescension. "She's sentimental about the place, but she'll see the logic. This is our future, Leo. Her future. Ava's future. She'll thank me for it later." Thank him? For what? For plotting behind my back to sell my childhood home, the only home our daughter had ever known. The anger that flared up was hot and sudden, chasing away the cold dread. I pushed the door open fully. It creaked loudly, and Ethan spun around in his chair, his eyes wide with surprise. He fumbled with his phone, quickly ending the call. "Rosemary, I didn't hear you," he said, his voice a little too high, his smile a little too wide. "Everything okay? Who are you talking to?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "What sale were you talking about, Ethan?" He let out a short, dismissive laugh, leaning back in his chair and trying to look relaxed. "Oh, that's just business stuff, honey. Leo and I are looking at selling off some old server equipment we were thinking of buying. It's complicated." It didn't sound complicated. I stepped further into the room. "It sounded like you were talking about me. You said she has no idea and that you'd handle Rosemary." His face hardened. The mask of the easygoing husband slipped, revealing the stressed, cornered man beneath. He stood up, towering over me. "Listen, Rosemary," he said, his voice dropping to a low, warning tone. I'm trying to build a future for this family. It involves high-stakes finance and making tough decisions. It's stressful, and I'm trying to shield you from it. Shield me or hide it from me. I shot back, my voice rising. You were talking about an appraisal. You were talking about a sale. What are you selling, Ethan? He took a step towards me, his jaw tight. For a second, I thought he might actually tell me the truth. Instead, his eyes went cold, and he delivered the words that would haunt me for days. Don't butt in. This is adult business, he snapped. I'm the one who earns the money. I'm the one who understands the market. You take care of Ava and the house and let me take care of the real world. Now I have work to do. He turned his back on me, a clear dismissal, and sat down at his desk, pointedly opening his laptop. I stood there, frozen, the words hanging in the air between us like poison. It felt like a humiliation, as if I were a child playing with dolls while he went off to do important things. I stumbled back out of the room, closing the door behind me. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. I went to the kitchen and mechanically started washing my forgotten teacup, my hands shaking. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it really was just some business deal I didn't understand. He was trying to provide for us, after all. I had to trust him, didn't I? Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Ethan's steady breathing beside me. Sleep was impossible. His words, "Don't butt in," played on a loop in my mind. The house felt different now. No longer a sanctuary, but a secret, a point of contention. I slipped out of bed, the floorboards creaking under my weight. I needed a glass of water or maybe just to walk to feel the solidness of my home beneath my feet. As I passed his study, I noticed a sliver of light from under the door. He'd forgotten to turn off his computer. On impulse, I pushed the door open. His laptop was on the desk, the screen glowing softly in the dark room. He must have just closed the lid without putting it to sleep. I hesitated for only a second before walking over and lifting the screen. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a spreadsheet or a business plan on the screen. It was a real estate website, and displayed in glossy high-resolution pictures was my home, my living room, my kitchen, Ava's bedroom with her little teddy bear propped on the pillow. Below the photos, in bold letters, was a description detailing the charming move-in ready property and a price that made my head spin. But it was the single, devastating word in bright red text at the top of the page that made the world drop out from under me. Pending. The word pulsed on the screen, a venomous red eye staring back at me in the darkness of the study. My blood ran cold, then hot. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a hypothetical exploration of the market. This was real. An offer had been made and an offer had been accepted. My home, the repository of my entire life's memories, had been bartered and sold like a used car while I sat in the next room sipping tea. My first instinct was to storm into our bedroom, rip the covers off Ethan, and scream until my throat was raw. But his dismissive words echoed in my ears. Don't butt in. This is adult business. He saw me as a child, an emotional obstacle. Screaming would only prove his point. If he was going to operate in the world of adult business, then I would have to meet him there with evidence, with cold, hard facts. My hands, though shaking, moved with a newfound purpose. I pulled out my phone, the screen's glow illuminating my pale, stricken face. I took a photo of the laptop screen, the listing, the horrible red pending staring back at me. I then clicked on the browser's history. It was a digital breadcrumb trail of his deceit. Zillow, Realtor. Com, mortgage calculators, articles titled, How to Convince Your Spouse to Sell and Legalities of Selling an Inherited Property. My stomach churned. He hadn't just thought about this. He had researched how to manipulate me into it. I minimized the browser window. On his desktop was a folder brazenly labeled Project Launch. My heart hammered against my ribs as I clicked it open. Inside were business plans, financial projections, and another folder simply labeled house. I opened it. There they were. A copy of the appraisal report he'd mentioned, a professional photography contract, and an email thread with a realtor named Vanessa. I started reading from the beginning. The emails went back 2 months. Vanessa, Ethan's first email read, "My wife and I are looking to sell our property at 345 Oak Street. We need a quick, quiet sale. The primary goal is to liquidate the asset for a business investment." The lie was so blatant, so casual. I scrolled down, my disgust growing with every line. Vanessa's replies were cheerful and professional. She'd outlined her strategy, the staging process, the commission rates. Ethan had handled everything. He had let the photographers in one afternoon when I was out with Ava at the park. He had scheduled the private viewings for times I was at my weekly grocery run. He had orchestrated this entire charade behind my back in my own home. Then I saw it. The offer, a PDF attachment from 2 days ago. A full-price all-cash offer from a development company. At the bottom was the purchase and sale agreement. I scrolled through the legalese, my eyes scanning for the signature lines. There was one for the buyer, one for Ethan, and one for me. His was signed with a neat digital signature. Mine was starkly, terrifyingly blank. He hadn't forged it yet. He was waiting to handle Rosemary and get me to sign the final papers, just as he'd told Leo on the phone. The closing date was listed at the top of the contract. It was for next Friday, 8 days from now. I felt like I was going to be sick. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a conspiracy. He had moved every piece on the chessboard, cornering me without my even knowing we were playing a game. The sheer audacity of it, the depth of the deception, stole my breath. This wasn't the man I married. The man I married would have talked to me, dreamed with me. This man, this stranger, plotted against me. I closed the laptop, the soft click echoing in the silent house. I walked out of the study and back into our bedroom, the phone clutched in my hand like a weapon. The rage was a living thing inside me now, a cold, controlled fire. I walked to his side of the bed and said his name, my voice low and devoid of any warmth. "Ethan," he stirred, grumbling. "Rosemary, what is it? What time is it?" "It's time for some adult business," I said. I switched on the bedside lamp, flooding the room in a harsh yellow light. He blinked, shielding his eyes. I held my phone in front of his face, the picture of the real estate listing glowing on the screen. "Care to explain what this is?" He squinted at the phone, and I saw the moment recognition dawned. All the color drained from his face. He sat bolt upright in bed, sputtering. Where did you see that, Rosemary? It's not what it looks like. Isn't it?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Because it looks like you've sold my grandmother's house without telling me. It looks like you've accepted an offer. It looks like the closing is in 8 days." He scrambled for a defense, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape route. "I was going to tell you. I was waiting for the right time. It was a surprise." "A surprise?" I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that didn't sound like me at all. "You call this a surprise?" "I call it the ultimate betrayal, Ethan. You lied to me for months. You let strangers walk through our daughter's bedroom. You made a deal to sell the roof over our heads, and my name isn't even on the contract yet." That's when he switched tactics. The cornered animal came out fighting. He threw the covers off and stood up, his voice rising to match mine. "I did it for us, Rosemary. For our future. This stupid house is just bricks and wood. But my business, our company, that's real. It's our ticket to a better life. A life where you don't have to worry about money ever again. My grandmother left me this house so I would never have to worry," I shot back. "It was my security, my inheritance. And you're trying to steal it from me to fund some pipe dream with Leo." It's not a pipe dream, he roared, his face red with anger. It's a multi-million-dollar idea, and you're too sentimental and small-minded to see it. I am trying to build an empire for our family, and you're crying about some drafty old house. Don't you dare talk about my home that way. He took a step closer, his eyes blazing. I have to. Someone in this family has to be the realist. Someone has to make the hard decisions. The buyers are a development company. The deal is done. The closing is next week. All you have to do is sign the papers. He saw the defiant look on my face and his expression turned cold and calculating. He lowered his voice, but it carried more menace than his shouting. If you don't sign, Rosemary, the deal falls through. I lose everything. My reputation, the seed money, everything. Leo has already remortgaged his own house based on this sale going through. You don't sign that paper. You don't just ruin me. You ruin Leo. You ruin his wife, his 2 little kids. Their future is on your shoulders now, too. Do you really want to be the person who destroys 2 families because you can't let go of a pile of old memories? His words hung in the air, a perfectly crafted cage of guilt and obligation. He wasn't just threatening his own future. He was holding Leo's innocent family hostage while making me the potential executioner. I could see it in his eyes, the smug certainty of a man who believes he's just checkmated his opponent. He expected tears. He expected me to crumble, to apologize for being so emotional, to promise to sign the papers and be the supportive wife he clearly felt he deserved. But in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It froze. It hardened into a diamond-sharp point of clarity. The sentimental, accommodating Rosemary he knew had just left the building. I looked at him, my expression unreadable. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable, until the confident smirk on his face began to falter. So that's your play? I said, my voice unervingly calm. You lie, you deceive. You sell my home out from under me, and when I catch you, you try to emotionally blackmail me by threatening to ruin another family. That's your version of adult business. He was taken aback by my composure. Rosemary, be reasonable. No, I cut him off, holding up a hand. You don't get to use that word with me. You don't get to talk about reason. I will not be manipulated, and I will not be discussing this with you any further tonight. I turned and walked to the closet, pulling out a duffel bag. What are you doing? He demanded, his voice a mixture of confusion and irritation. I'm taking care of my daughter, I said, pulling clothes from my drawers and stuffing them into the bag. Since you're so busy with your real-world business, I'll handle the one thing that actually matters. Ava and I will be staying somewhere else for a few days. Panic flashed in his eyes. This wasn't part of his plan. He needed me here, under his roof, where he could control the narrative, where he could wear me down with his toxic blend of promises and threats. Don't be ridiculous, Rosemary. Where are you going to go? It's the middle of the night. That's not your concern, I said, zipping the bag closed. I went into Ava's room. She was sleeping peacefully, her little chest rising and falling, completely unaware of the earthquake that had just shattered her parents' marriage. Looking at her, so innocent and safe in the home I was now fighting for, solidified my resolve. I gently scooped her up, blankets and all. She stirred, murmuring something in her sleep, and snuggled against my shoulder. The warmth of her little body was an anchor in my swirling sea of fury and fear. Ethan was waiting in the hallway, blocking my path. You can't just leave, he hissed, trying to keep his voice down. We need to talk this out. You had months to talk to me, Ethan, I whispered back, my voice like ice. You chose to lie instead. Now get out of my way. He looked from my cold, determined face to the sleeping child in my arms. He knew he couldn't physically stop me without waking Ava and creating a scene he couldn't control. Defeated, he stepped aside, his face a thundercloud of rage. Fine, he spat. Run away, but this problem isn't going anywhere. That closing date is next Friday, and you're going to have to make a choice. I didn't dignify that with a response. I walked past him down the stairs that had creaked under my feet since I was a child and out the front door into the rain-slicked night. I didn't look back. I drove to my best friend, Mia's house. She opened the door in her